people been talking shit about Ava, so as always, I gotta come to its rescue. And but there has been some talk going around about, like, specifically I saw this video. If I can find it, I'll put it in the description, but I don't remember what it's called right now. And it's just talking about how, like, the overarching sort of plot about the angels and Ava, and, you know, how they came to Earth, like what the impacts are and all of that, it doesn't make a lot of sense, or if it does, it's hard to follow. And yeah, I could totally understand and even agree with that to some extent. I do think it makes sense, like, if you go back to, like, all of the plot threads and connect them, it all, you know, works out. I think. I haven't looked at it in a long time. But, like, the reason for that is because, like, who really cares about, like, the overarching plot to Ava? And the reason I say plot in quotations is because all of that shit about, like, the angels and, like, Lyriel and whatever, Lilith and Adam and all that, it's in my opinion, it's, like, superfluous. It's almost as extra as, like, the symbolism, like the Christian symbolism that means nothing. Not quite as much, because I think Lilith and Adam and, like, creation and all that sort of tie in to some of the themes of Ava a little bit, but it's like when people, like, get sort of bothered by this kind of stuff, I just want to ask them, like, did you like the characters at all? Because, you know, that's what Ava is really about for me. It's the characters, you know, and the plot on a moment-to-moment basis in Ava is perfectly fine to follow. Like, it's I haven't watched much mecha, but as far as my understanding goes, it's just like a standard, like, monster of the day format, sort of, at least for the first part. I know it gets derailed, but that, you know, that's why I love it. But anyway, for the first part of the show, it's very easy to follow what's going on. Like, there's angels coming down, and the kids, like, have to fight them. But the whole time, it's not really about, like, the battles. Like, that's not really the draw of the show, even though I think a lot of them, honestly, most of them are really good. It's about, like, the character struggles. You know, it's about the psychological traumas that they have along the way. It's not about the adventure, really. And in each case, like, the angel serves to, like, further explore either the character's psyche or a character's relationship. Like, there's the time when Shinji gets sort of consumed by the angel, and he's in like a weird sphere of his own thoughts, and he's, like, being berated with like the worst his mind has to offer for, like, to himself. There's the time when Asuka is, like, her mind is, like, brain blasted by that one. I think that maybe was Lyriel, the one that's, like, brain blasting Asuka, and she's basically going and, like, living all of her, like, she's experiencing the worst her ego has to offer to herself, basically. And then, you know, there's the time when one of my favorites, because Ava is so bleak and, like, dark most of the time. One of the best moments to me is, I think it's episode 8 or 9, when Asuka and Shinji have to, like, work together to overcome the angel that sort of splits into halves and sort of recreates itself. I love that scene because it's such, like, a happy moment in the midst of such a dark show. Like, I don't know, the music that's playing in that scene is also just very triumphant. So, like, in every case, it serves to bolster the characters. And this is just, like, the plot, like, on the surface. And I don't even think it's like, it's not so boring that it couldn't make, like, an okay show if you put more focus on it. It's just, like, a perfectly solid plot with, like, the monsters coming all the time, focusing on the characters, And then as you get further into the show, they're just like, okay, like, fuck the plot. We're gonna just start like throwing these characters into like crazier and crazier circumstances, sort of, and just like exploring their psyches. And when I say fuck the plot, I don't mean that it totally derails until obviously like the 25th and 26th episodes, maybe like the 18th episode. There's like a few moments where the plot just sort of gets put on hold. And you know, it's because the plot is not the draw of the show. It's not the appeal of the show, in my opinion. And like, if you don't like the characters, the themes, characters and the themes in the show, then it's like, yeah, it's like I could totally understand you not liking the show. Like, I don't like it when people take an aspect of a show that's like unimportant, and they're like, well, this sucks, so the show sucks. Like, the plot, like, with again, with all the angels and everything, and the ships, and the way that like the seeds of life are planted on Earth, and then everything is exploding in the third impact, and it's like humans, you know, they need to, all that shit, like, it's lore, basically. It's like playing an Elder Scrolls game and then looking at like some of the extra books you find like in a bookshelf, and like reading some of that lore and being like, oh, this is kind of interesting, and then realizing that like that was all there was, like there wasn't any more books besides that little tidbit, and being like, oh, this game sucks. Like, it doesn't make any sense as a criticism, really. I mean, you can dislike a show for whatever reason you want, but it almost seems like intentionally missing the point, or just like trying to find something to like about it, or maybe you just like didn't realize it was about the characters. And if you just like if you just think it's like super pretentious, or like you don't like, you think Shinji's a bitch or whatever, and Asuka's a bitch in a different way, like Asuka's an evil bitch and Shinji's like a whiny bitch, like, sure, yeah, like if you think that, like, I don't feel that way, but I understand that as a criticism, because that is like the core of the show is the characters and like their struggles. So if you don't like that, then sure, I totally understand why you wouldn't like the show. But to focus in on like the plot that's basically in the background, and I know I'm using plot to refer to two things, but hopefully you're following me. There's the plot that's like the story structure that's like carrying, that's just like the excuse for the character development to happen. To me, that's all solid. Like, it's totally easy to follow. Just it's sort of connecting all of it together into the greater fabric of the Eva lore that's harder to do. And if you want to do that, just like go on the Wikipedia or whatever. It's not really what the show is about. It's kind of interesting, and it's like a little bit of a mystery, I guess, but I don't know. It's not what the show is about for me at all. It's like, to me, Eva's about, as I said, like the character development. I think they have really, you know, interesting and well-developed characters that have like actual struggles, and to me, the amount of times they sort of repeat their follies in different ways is good, because it's realistic. Like, I don't know, in a lot of shows I feel like character development happens like too hastily to the point that it just doesn't feel real to me. But in Eva, it's like, it feels like this long journey. It's like a fucking 26 episode journey, and the movie, just to like come to terms with their basic problems in their life that everyone has, you know. And the show, as I was saying about the themes, it's about, you know, the troubles that people have communicating with each other, and how painful it is for people to communicate with each other. And in my opinion, the metaphor of the AT field is just, it's a really great metaphor, because it's like essential in every human's life, pretty much, to socialize and like communicate and have relationships with other people. But it's always going to suck in some way or another, but you still have to do it. And you know, that's like, we have these like bubbles around each other, and we're never going to truly understand what's happening in each other's psyche, but we still have to communicate. So yeah, it's like that's what the show's about to me. It's about the characters. It's about the themes of the difficulties of communicating. There's a lot of other themes just based around psychology, and I find all of that very interesting. And I haven't seen the show in a while, but whenever I see people complaining about like the sort of high level plot, it's like, who really cares, you know? It's sort of like when people complain about cute girls do cute things shows, and they're like, yeah, this show doesn't have like a story, and it's like, no, it does have a story. It's just the story is about the characters and not about like the events. The events are just a vehicle for the character story to unfold. So it's like, I don't know. I wish people would put more effort into like figuring out what the appeal of a show is, and then realizing, oh, okay, like this didn't do it for me, or I don't like this type of story, rather than being like, oh, this element sucked, yeah, the show just sucks now. It's like it's not as if like you need to like the same things. But I feel like you should be able to identify like the appeal of a show, or at least try to. But I feel like a lot of people don't do that for a lot of things, and I feel like this example with Ava is one of them. So, yeah, that's the rant for today.